Church ate the homecoming. Chet came to himself on the platform of a strange railroad depot. A very familiar blonde woman and a sailor were sitting on the platform beside him. The depot was built of stone. It wasn't field stone, but what looked to be fine white marble. It looked like it was brand new, but it also looked like it had been there forever. He tried hard to process this new scene, but failed in the attempt. A couple of minutes ago, he had been in the cab of a locomotive suffering from terrible pains in his chest, jaw, and left arm. Now he felt better than he could ever remember feeling. The area surrounding the depot was strangely familiar, but totally alien as well. The woman was wearing a red full-skirted party dress with a Christmas motif. The sailor was wearing his winter blues with the stripes of a junior petty officer. They sat there waiting. "Where am I?" "You're at the depot," said the woman in the red dress. "Yes, I can see that it's a depot, but I don't remember getting off a train here." "Were you just on a train?" Yes." "Well, this is the depot." "What depot is this?" "No railroad I ever saw would build a depot out of prime marble. It's just too expensive. Depots are built out of wood, or in some instances, brick. I've never seen a marble one before, and this one is way too clean to be beside a railroad track. Which depot this is isn't important. This is where we were told to meet you to take you home." "Where? Nashville?" "No, home. Now I am lost. I live in Nashville, just off Donelson Pike." "That's where you lived, but—" "What do you mean by but?" "We have a message for you." "Oh! Remember what was going on in the locomotive cab this afternoon?" Uh, yeah, but where are you going with it?" "Well, we met you the first time at a grade crossing outside of Sterling Forks. Because of your reaction, we were chosen to meet you so you could see that there are no hard feelings here." "Okay. Were you in a little blue car on Huntsville Pike?" "That was us." "I am so sorry. It happened so fast. I feel terrible about it." "We saw it. We talked to you through your dreams and tried to tell you it's all okay. I remember a couple of times. You're the lady in the newspaper." "I got it. The last dream had chest pains in it. I woke up in a cold sweat." "We're taking you home, to the beginning/the end. Your body is still in the locomotive. Judge Green has called for help and has stopped and is trying to revive you with CPR. However, your heart is in too bad a shape. It is time to go home. Your parents are waiting for you." How ironic. I died of a broken heart. "Yeah, I guess you did. Now that I am dead, what do I do? Where do I go?" "First, we will reunite you with loved ones, then we go check your bets." "Bets?" "Yeah, bets. When you return here, after you are reunited with those who came back first, we check our bets about your life in the earthly plane of existence." I really don't understand now. Do you say there's gambling involved? "Yeah, we all bet on how long we can last in that environment and what finally kills us." "How does that work?" "If you predict how your life turns out and live out the predicted span, you get a new bet on a new person. If you lose, you have to go back and do it over again. If you do it perfectly, you don't have to go back at all if you don't want to, and stay here. For some reason, nobody wants to stay here. About 6 people have done it perfectly. They're allowed to come and go as they please. Then they're the ones that never make it past birth. They come right back. The first available pregnancy after you make your bet, down you go, as we say here. We even send some people back when we feel that they had a fighting chance of making improvements down there, or learning an important lesson for all of us. Some people come back 3 or 4 times in one life. Could I go back now if I wanted to? No, you dealt with all the problems in that life in a heroic manner. Not only that, but you got a handle on an unsolvable. Everyone was watching you. Jolene was supposed to get pregnant and have a baby with enormous medical needs. Your pictures caused the relationship that was going to cause the pregnancy to unravel. You got rid of Billy Bob without killing him. There were heavy side bets. Not only that if you die from a broken heart, you cannot go back into that life. I am afraid that our momentary lapse of reason, ethics, and propriety caused that. For that we are both sorry. What lapse? I had the drunken urge to tear Dave's clothes off. It happened as we were approaching the grade crossing. I guess it was bad timing on our parts. Dave got distracted and didn't hear the approaching train. The depot was our way of making it up to you. We came in through the tunnel like most other people do. We caused your broken heart. We also made it possible for you to break the unsolvable. The time off for your trauma gave you time to figure it out. You had a good 20 years left. Maybe not so good because of the disabled baby, but 20 years anyway. How do you know that? We looked up the original script and the bets on it. Now I am lost. There is a script. And bets? The Presbyterians call it predestination. You are telling me I was working from a script? Sort of. When you go down, you are given several native abilities and a gift. As you pass through the portal into a baby, the trauma of being born erases most of your memory of past lives and the experience here, as well as the names of the abilities and the gift. You have to discover those things as you grow. If you are lucky, the memory of past gender is erased as well. If you're not, it adds another burden to solve during your allotted 70. The burdens are the uncontrollable circumstances of your birth, as you have no choice as to the baby you inhabit, not even gender. You just drop into the next available baby, shortly after conception. That is what the bets are about. It's whether or not you can get past the 70 and learn the lessons. It's about finding the gift and using it to its best benefit. It's how you use your innate abilities and compensate for accidents of birth. After you go down there, it's all up to you, regardless of where you're born. As they walked down the path from the depot, the ground started slanting gradually upward, and the path turned to compensate for the slope. Eventually, the slope turned vertical, and the path ran along the foot of the slope. After a distance, they came to a portal in the hill. It was ancient rough-cut gray granite. The path led into the tunnel. A feeling of calmness and euphoria came over him as they entered the tunnel. It led upward and turned gently to the left. As they walked through the tunnel, Chet felt all the stress and cares of a lifetime of hardscrabble existence drain from his soul. All the worries disappeared. As they walked and turned, he sensed a light up ahead. As they approached the light, it got brighter. It wasn't a painful brightness, but a brightness of clean and newness. He heard voices. They were happy voices. Some of them were voices he hadn't heard since his childhood. They were friendly voices, comforting voices. It was like walking into a potluck supper in a church basement, but it also had the hum of a busy casino. There was a banner saying "Welcome Home" hanging from 2 poles. There were hundreds of people there, every one of them happy to see him. Chet was happy too. He had never in recent memory felt so happy and contented. He looked at his traveling companions. Miranda, who was a middle-aged blonde woman, was now a child of about 10, as was Dave. He looked at his hands and saw that he too was about 10, plus or minus a year. He remembered a Bible verse he heard as a child. Matthew 18, verse 3. And said, "Verily I say unto you, except ye repent and become as little children, ye shall not enter the kingdom of heaven." Everything made sense. Church 9 wash day. Charlene looked at the mountain of laundry in the laundry room and shook her head. Ben had mentioned that towels and sheets were getting scarce, and the pile was just too frustrating to look at. The new washer was still untested. She looked at the pile and considered her options. She could load it all in the car and ask Ben for money and go to the laundromat, or simply attack the pile with the new washer and the questionable dryer. Either option would be a 2-day task. First, she checked for supplies. There was an open 25-pound box of Tide, 2 gallons of fabric softener, and a case of Clorox. She walked over to the box of Tide and picked it up. There was about 5 pounds left. That would do today. She would need to go to town to buy some more tomorrow. She checked the dryer. There was a load in it from when the washing machine died. That had to be a month ago. It was clean and dry, so she took it out and put it in a basket. It was mostly towels. She put the basket by the door and started sorting laundry. There was 1 load of dedicates. Those were from her stay in the house. Some of them were hers and some of them were Miranda's. She remembered wearing most of them. That was why she decided to attack the laundry in the first place. There were 3 loads of coloreds. Some of them had been there since before Christmas, and the rest had accumulated since then. Benny had been trying to handle the whites and never washed any coloreds before the washer died. Some of the clothes on the bottom of the pile were starting to get moldy. They would need extra treatment. The rest was whites. Sheets, pillowcases, towels, dishcloths, dish towels, and underwear. That pile was 5 feet high and 12 feet wide. She started the load of delicates and went upstairs for something to read while the clothes were being washed. She had walked by the study every day, but really didn't have any reason to go in there. She saw floor-to-ceiling bookshelves as she walked by, but she said, well, someday. It was raining outside, and the laundry needed to be done. Today was as close to someday as one could wish. She walked into the study. She stood in the middle of the room and became catatonic from the choices available. Except for a window on the outside wall and the doorway into the hall, every wall was books. They all looked like somebody had read them. They weren't there for decoration. None of them were sorted into any coherent order except that the children's books, and there were a lot of them, were shelved close to the floor. Up above a child's reach, the books were randomly placed. There was Ernest Hemingway's Farewell to Arms beside Babbitt, beside The Innocents Abroad. After fingering along about 30 feet of bookshelf, she chose I the Jury. She smiled as she thought about what Marjorie would say about that choice. A nice gritty dark detective classic would be nice on a rainy day. It was also the only one by Mickey Spillane that she hadn't read. When she got back to the laundry room, the load of delicates had finished the last rinse and was starting the final spin. When they were finished, she put them in a basket and started a load of towels. While the towels were being washed, she hung the delicates on a clothesline in the other side of the basement. It was a huge room, but it only housed the furnace/central air conditioning unit and a clothesline. All the maintenance lights were on. Because she spent most of her daylight hours outside, she never noticed that the air conditioning wasn't working. The house was cool enough for her. She thought about Ben. He had mentioned the inoperable system in passing. Nobody called for repairs. Her parents in Connecticut had a similar system. Any two fault lights would shut down the system. After reset without correcting the problem, the next one would shut down the system until someone corrected at least two faults, unless one of the sections that had a fault wasn't needed for the present season. There were 4 fault lights. All 4 were on. I wish Marjorie were here to see me right now, she muttered under her breath as she shut off the master switch for the system. The first light was the filter. It was actually 2 filters. The upstream filter was a plain old furnace filter. The second was a HEPA filter made of high-density microfiber. The primary was blocked solid with dust and other household debris. It was sucked into the intake and had places where it no longer made contact with its mounting. It broke when she pulled it out. That was why the HEPA filter plugged. It was solid too. While she was working on the grounds, she got familiar with the contents of the garage. She went to a shelf in the garage and got a filter. The HEPA filter was reusable. She knocked the loose stuff off it and took it into the laundry room to wash it out. The water was black and soupy when she was done. She put the filters back in and went on to the second light. That was the humidifier. The light triggered any time the tank ran dry or the drum failed to rotate. The tank was dry. The drum was white with calcium. The water inlet had a stalactite emerging from it. The water fill float was stuck in the up position. There was a thick layer of calcium on everything. The washer finished its final spin and stopped. She took the towels out of the washer and put them in the dryer, loaded a load of t-shirts and boxer shorts in the washer, and turned both machines on. There were still at least 2 more loads of towels. She found the clothes pins and went back into the basement and addressed the humidifier. When she flexed the belt after wrestling it out of the humidifier, it broke in 2. She moved on to the dehumidifier. The catch tank was half full of foul-smelling liquid. There was a calcium mark from the top of the water level to the full mark on the tank. The full water float was stuck in the full position with calcium residue. She opened the access panel into the plenum and saw a real mess. The line on the humidifier had cracked and sprayed water into the plenum until the calcium plugged the crack. That was where the calcium in the dehumidifier came from. The refrigeration coils of the dehumidifier were coated in calcium as well. She heard the washer stop, so she went back into the laundry room and pulled the load out of the dryer and refilled the dryer and the washer with towels. She folded the first load from the dryer and went back to the furnace/air conditioner. She opened the access panel for the control circuits and looked at the wiring diagram. It was possible to disconnect the dehumidifier and the humidifier and run the heat and air conditioning function. She went into the garage again and found a screwdriver and disconnected the two damaged sections. She turned the power on and pushed the reset button. The system hummed to life. The delicates were dry, so she took them down and folded them into a basket. Before she was finished folding, the washer stopped again. The dryer was still running, so she put the damp towels into a basket and loaded the last load of towels. She made a rough nest in the sheets and sat down to read. The pile of bedding was much more comfortable than the straight-backed wooden chair against the wall. Mickey Spillane's rough-hewn prose blended in with the slightly mildewed air of the laundry room. She got into chapter 3 when the dryer stopped. She pulled out the load of towels and put the towels from the basket in the dryer. The rain outside got louder, and the wind picked up, making the garage doors rattle. She emptied the lint trap and restarted the dryer. She was toward the end of folding the first two loads of towels when the washer finished its load. She had all three baskets in the laundry room full. She found it hard to believe that a house as big and imposing and full as this one would only have 3 laundry baskets. There had to be more. In the meantime, she took the basket of delicates upstairs to the guest room she occupied and emptied it on the bed. The house was noticeably cooler. The quick fix on the state-of-the-art whole house air conditioning system worked. The air was damp, but it was really damp outside as the rain pelted the house. She made a mental note to herself to talk to Ben about getting a serviceman over to replace the humidifier and fixing the dehumidifier. She also decided to look for a water softener in the water system. There had to be one. If there was one, it was in dire need of servicing. But now she had clean underwear. That was the original idea behind the mission. She couldn't remember the last time she showered or put on the faded black sweatsuit that she was wearing. It was bought when she was a freshman at Quinnipiac a long time ago. It was now filthy from her ad hoc repair of the heating system. As she passed the mirror, she stopped to take a look at herself. It had been a whole year since the second incident in the park. She had been here for 10 months. It seemed like a couple of weeks. Her hair was piled on top of her head in an insane imitation of the Gibson girl look of the late Victorian era. Wisps hung down from it like stray spider webs, and the sun had done it no favors. The color ranged from yellow to dark auburn, depending on position and sun exposure. Anywhere the sun hit her skin was bright red, fading into orange freckles. Looking naked in the mirror, she realized that middle age was knocking on her front door. Her perfect 33C breasts had a bit of a sag to them now because of not wearing support while she worked outside. Her abs were solid and textured. Her knees were bright red and dry with scars from occasionally kneeling on thorns while weeding. Her feet were permanently stained from working barefoot outside and thickly calloused. She looked at her hands. Her nails were dirty and broken. As she stepped into the shower and soaked herself up, she realized that she had never felt better in her entire life. Since the visit to sit in jail, she hadn't had a nightmare. When she did remember dreams, they were of sun, sand, and sea, beautiful men and women and children playing in the Rhode Island surf. She was wearing a bikini and enjoying the attention she attracted. How did it happen? This transformation from a gorgeous young woman to a middle-aged spinster with few prospects. Why did she feel so good? Then she realized that she hadn't brought any towels upstairs. Church 10 sermon.